close your eyes for a moment. Listen to your breath. Tonight, I will take you somewhere quiet, a place where science once tried to measure the soul. There was an experiment decades ago that sought to understand the secret of sleep, not to heal it, not to cure it, but to control it. It began as a scientific curiosity and ended as a secret the world was never meant to remember. They called it Project Hypnos, a simple name taken from the ancient god of sleep, but what they found beneath that name would shake even the calmest minds. This story isn't written in textbooks. It was pieced together from half-burnt documents, sealed letters, and a single voice recording marked "Do Not Play." The experiment was buried, not just by governments, but by the silence of time itself. But before we reach that recording, we must go back to a time when sleep was seen as a doorway, not a disorder. To a time when scientists truly believed that dreams could open the gates of consciousness and that something was waiting on the other side. So lie down, let your thoughts drift with me, and as your breathing slows, we'll walk quietly through the corridors of a forgotten laboratory, where the walls still hum with whispers of what they tried to bury. It began in the late 1940s, when science and spirituality still shared a thin line. After the war, nations raced not just for weapons, but for understanding. How did the mind survive what the body could not? Could dreams reveal truths that consciousness kept hidden? In an old institute on the outskirts of Prague, a team of neurologists and theologians worked together. Their leader, a quiet man named Dr. Emil Karsten, believed that sleep was more than rest. It was communication. Karsten wrote in one of his early papers, "The sleeping mind may be the antenna through which we hear what the waking world ignores." His team called their mission Project Hypnos. They wanted to isolate pure sleep, the kind untouched by noise, by dreams, by thought. They believed if a person could remain in continuous sleep for long enough, something beyond the body might awaken. They built a small chamber, not a cell, not a prison, but a soundless capsule where air moved in controlled rhythms, mimicking the breath of the human body. Their first subjects were volunteers, patients with insomnia who wanted peace. They were told they'd simply be observed while they slept. But the goal was different. Karsten's notes describe prolonged sedation beyond natural cycles, meaning they kept the subjects in continuous sleep for weeks. At first, it worked beautifully. Their breathing synchronized with the rhythm of the machine. Heartbeats slowed. Brainwaves flattened into smooth, identical waves, the kind never seen in waking life. And then, on the seventh night, something appeared in the readings. A second pattern. Faint. Unknown. Not human. Karsten called it the echo. He believed they had made contact, not with the subconscious, but with a collective frequency that all sleeping minds shared. He wrote only one line in the margin. "If this pattern continues, we are not alone when we dream." Soon after that, the logs go blank. The daily entries stop, and a new page begins, titled only. Restricted, level theta. 20 years later, a box was found in the basement of the same institute, sealed under concrete. Inside were magnetic reels, faded photos, and a file labeled Hypnos, Phase 3. No one admitted to knowing what it was. But among the papers was a single letter, and signed, that read, "We were told to end it. We tried, but something stayed awake." The files described an event in 1953, when the experiment expanded beyond sleep measurement. They had begun recording the echo frequency from each sleeper and playing it back into their dreams through low-frequency sound. The goal was to create shared dreaming. But after 72 hours of playback, all 5 subjects began whispering, the same words in the same tone, though none were awake. The transcripts only capture fragments, the voice beneath the silence. "Do not wake us. He is listening." Doctors thought it was coincidence, until one of the researchers, Dr. Weiss, reported hearing whispers in the empty chamber after the machines were off. When they replayed the recordings, they found a faint pulse, a sixth voice, deeper, rhythmic, repeating every 22 seconds. They thought it was feedback, but when reversed, it translated, roughly, to a Latin phrase. Somnus non tacit. Sleep does not remain silent. Karsten wrote in his final note, "The subjects are no longer dreaming. They are observing us." And after that line, nothing. The rest of the folder is blank. No cloche, no report, just a burnt edge, as if someone tried to erase what came next. The experiment was shut down within days. Officially, due to equipment failure. Unofficially, no one ever saw Dr. Carson again. But years later, one final piece surfaced, a fragment of audio tape with a single line whispered in an unfamiliar voice. "You cannot bury what is not sleep." Decades passed. The world changed. Science evolved, and the secrets of the past faded into silence. But some silences were not empty. In 1989, a graduate student named Lena Voss stumbled upon fragments of the Hypnos documents while digitizing old archives for university in Vienna. Most were water damaged, but one page stood out. It had been typed twice, once in German, and then faintly in English beneath it, as if someone wanted it to be found. It read, "The frequency still exists. It does not fade with time." Curious, Lena began cross-referencing the frequency mentioned, 0.92 hertz, and discovered it didn't match any known brainwave. It sat between delta and theta, a rhythm of almost death, almost dream. For months, she reconstructed the experiment's design using whatever fragments remained. And one quiet night in the lab, she decided to recreate it, not on people, but through sound. She took the surviving notes, the original machine diagrams, and translated the sleep pulse into a low digital hum. When played through speakers, it wasn't a tone, it was a breath. Slow, even human, as if the room itself were inhaling. Lena listened for a few seconds. Then the recording cut out on its own. She tried again. The same thing. But when she reviewed the waveform, she noticed something impossible. A single pulse, deeper than the original sound, buried beneath the frequency she created. It wasn't from her recording. It was returning. She noted in her digital log. Signal responded. Possible feedback. Possibly sentience. That was the last entry she ever wrote. Her research computer was later found powered on, still playing that same 0.92 hertz tone, repeating endlessly. And in the log folder, the final file was renamed automatically. He sleeps that wave. By the early 2000s, stories of the Hypnos frequency began circulating through small online communities. Some claimed it could induce lucid dreams. Others said it caused blackouts. Most dismissed it as myth. But hidden deep within the metadata of an obscure online archive, a file appeared briefly, titled simply, project_h.wave. It was only 6 seconds long. A hum, faint and uneven. Yet audio analysts claimed it contained layers of sound not detectable by human ears, like a signature or an echo that shouldn't exist. When one researcher amplified the sound to study it, strange things began to occur. Equipment powered off, hard drives corrupted, and in one lab, every microphone recorded simultaneously a whisper that wasn't spoken aloud. You were listening where others slept. The event was quickly dismissed as audio hallucination, pareidolia, the mind-making patterns where none exist. But the lab technicians later noticed something else. Every time they deleted the file, a new one appeared in the recycle bin. Same name, same timestamp, as if it refused to vanish. Weeks later, a cybersecurity firm traced the file's digital fingerprint. It didn't match any known computer system. Its signature traced back to coordinates, not on Earth, but beneath it, a decommissioned Cold War facility outside Prague, the very same institute where Project Hypnos was first conducted. The government sealed the location shortly after the discovery, citing chemical instability. But satellite scans showed a faint, rhythmic energy signature, pulsing every 22 seconds, just like the voice on the 1953 tape. Someone or something was still awake down there. When a story grows this strange, it rarely stays confined to science. Soon, whispers reached the Vatican. In 2007, an internal memo surfaced among leaked documents known as the Archivum Tenebris, the Archive of Shadows. Within it, one entry stood out. Reference, Project Hypnos, associated with audio phenomenon the breath below. Do not replicate under any circumstance. This suggested that even within religious circles, the experiment was known, or perhaps feared, not for what it revealed, but for what it awakened. In the margins of the memo, a pre-scientist named Father Aurelius had handwritten a curious note. The breath of Hypnos is not man's creation. It predates Babel. He believed the frequency wasn't discovered. It was remembered. A sound older than speech, older than prayer. Something embedded in the rhythm of existence itself. For centuries, monks practiced chants said to align the mind with divine resonance. But Father Aurelius noted that one specific tone, the subharmonic of silence, appeared in ancient texts across cultures. The Egyptians called it the heartbeat of Osiris. The Greeks, the sleep of the gods. And in early Christian mysticism, it was known as the breath beneath Eden. The Vatican quietly acquired several of the original Hypnos reels in 2011, stored them under restricted access, and classified them as non-harmonic material. To this day, no public acknowledgement exists. But rumor says that every few years, one of the reels is tested, and that anyone who listens too long begins to speak in their sleep, in Latin. Father Aurelius's final diary entry reads, "Sleep remembers what man forgets. The echo waits. When a story grows this strange, it rarely stays confined to science." Soon, whispers reached the Vatican. In 2007, an internal memo surfaced among leaked documents known as the Archivum Tenebris, the Archive of Shadows. Within it, one entry stood out. Reference, Project Hypnos, associated with audio phenomenon the breath below. Do not replicate under any circumstance. This suggested that even within religious circles, the experiment was known, or perhaps feared, not for what it revealed, but for what it awakened. In the margins of the memo, a pre-scientist named Father Aurelius had handwritten a curious note. The breath of Hypnos is not man's creation. It predates Babel. He believed the frequency wasn't discovered. It was remembered. A sound older than speech, older than prayer. Something embedded in the rhythm of existence itself. For centuries, monks practiced chants said to align the mind with divine resonance. But Father Aurelius noted that one specific tone, the subharmonic of silence, appeared in ancient texts across cultures. The Egyptians called it the heartbeat of Osiris. The Greeks, the sleep of the gods. And in early Christian mysticism, it was known as the breath beneath Eden. The Vatican quietly acquired several of the original Hypnos reels in 2011, stored them under restricted access, and classified them as non-harmonic material. To this day, no public acknowledgement exists. But rumor says that every few years, one of the reels is tested, and that anyone who listens too long begins to speak in their sleep, in Latin. Father Aurelius's final diary entry reads, "Sleep remembers what man forgets. The echo waits. Time as always forgets, but memory has its own ways of returning." In 2020, a small group of independent researchers began exploring unexplained global sleep synchronization events, nights when millions of people reported identical dreams. Dreams of corridors, of humming air, of breathing walls. No connection was found until one researcher, Dr. Nia Rayner, matched the pattern of recorded sleep brainwaves from those nights to the Hypnos frequency, 0.92 Hz. She didn't believe in coincidence. She believed in memory, not personal, but collective. In an interview that was never aired, she said quietly, "Dreams are not our own. They're part of something vast, an ocean that remembers every sleeper who ever lived." When asked if she believed Project Hypnos was still active, she smiled, calm, almost peaceful, and said, It never stopped. Sleep is the experiment. That was the last anyone heard from her. A week later, her lab went dark during a city-wide power outage. No backup logs, no files. Only one line left on her whiteboard. The echo is waking. But maybe it was never meant as a warning. Maybe it was an invitation to listen, to slow down, to breathe in the rhythm that every living thing shares when it sleeps. Because the same pulse that frightened scientists decades ago might simply be the sound of existence resting. There is a theory, quiet and unproven, that every living being vibrates at a slightly different frequency. But when we sleep, truly, deeply, those frequencies align, as if consciousness itself exhales together. Dr. Karsten hinted at this decades ago. He called it the universal lullaby. The hypnos frequency, he believed, wasn't dangerous. It was misunderstood, because what he heard, that whisper, that rhythm, might not have been a threat at all, but the earth itself breathing. Every creature, every tree, every ocean wave rests to the same hidden beat. And in that rhythm, minds overlap. For moments, we share silence. Maybe that's why people dream of similar places they've never seen. The long corridor, the quiet room, the whispering hum. It isn't a shared hallucination. It's home, the place where consciousness gathers to rest before waking again. So when the experimenters tried to control it, it resisted. Because you cannot control sleep, you can only surrender to it. In the remaining recovered hypnos documents, one final page survives, and signed, undated, but written in Karsten's typewriter style. It reads, "If you're reading this, you are listening. If you are listening, you are part of the experiment. Do not fear the hum. It is your own." It's strange, isn't it? To think that the same silence that surrounds you right now, as you lie still, eyes heavy, breath slow, might be the very field those scientists once studied. That maybe it didn't open a door. Maybe they rediscovered something that was never closed. Because the deeper you go into sleep, the less separate you become. Your heartbeat softens into the world's rhythm. Your breath joins a choir of millions. And somewhere in that stillness, the echo continues, not as warning, but as comfort. You are not alone when you sleep. You are surrounded by every dreamer who ever lived, breathing together in the dark. And so, the experiment they tried to bury never truly ended. It only changed form, because every night, when we close our eyes, we continue it, gently, quietly, without fear. Project Hypnos was never about science. It was about memory, about finding that hidden rhythm between consciousness and silence. So tonight, as you drift into your own sleep, remember, the hum you hear in the distance isn't from the world outside. It's the sound of the mind folding inward, the echo of 1,000 dreams breathing in sync. Let guide you. Let slow your heartbeat. Let become your lullaby. You are safe here. The story has ended, but the silence that follows is still awake. If you're still awake, and your mind drifts between dream and curiosity, our next story waits for you. An ancient mystery that hums like the earth itself. Until then, sleep deeply, dream quietly, and remember, some experiments never die. They just dream.